Good evening and welcome to the South County Fire Board of Commissioners regular board meeting for July 21, 2026. I will call the board to order and ask everybody that can please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, board members, you have in front of you the draft agenda. I did want to note for you that our bond counsel has advised that under 10C regarding the resolution supporting passage of the bond, that there be a special public comment section in an abundance of caution in there. So without objection, there'll be an opportunity for public comment specifically on that. And just so the public attending or on Zoom knows, anybody wishing to make public comment regarding the bond can do that under public comment item number 7 or under what will be a new public comment under 10C or both. All right, with that.
Should we move that? Should we move that up a little bit so? people don't have the-
No, we'll get to that pretty
Okay,
fast.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
it's-
Thank you.
we'll be able to pretty fast. Anything else for the agenda?
No, sir.
All right, then I will move the agenda as amended. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Chan. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda as amended. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Let's see, that takes us to the consent agenda. Item number 4A, which is the July 21, 2026 claims vouchers totaling $2,091,898.15. I will move the adoption of those claims vouchers. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Wankelman. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the consent agenda items. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. That brings us to item number 5, which is approval of the meeting minutes. This evening, we have meeting minutes for the June 16, 2026 regular meeting, the June 30th special meeting, the July 7th regular meeting, the July 8th special meeting, and the July 15th special meeting. I will move the adoption of all of those meeting minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Fernhoff. It's been moved and seconded to adopt all of those meeting minutes. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. And if the board will indulge me on item number 6, my suggestion, I'm. Yes.
Stand by, sir.
Sure. We'll do that then. Okay. All right. So I have new information that Commissioner Rowland is unable to join us this evening, but intends to resign August 4th instead of at the end of July, which may actually be August 5th. He may not realize that our next meeting is actually Wednesday, August 5th. Right, because of National Night Out. We had set that schedule at the start of the year. So my suggestion is that we take up item number 6 at our next meeting when he's going to be here, if there's no
That'd be
objection to
good.
that.
That'd be fine. I think he should be here.
Yeah, well, that'd be nicer if he was
Yeah,
here
nicer,
for it.
yeah.
Exactly. So, okay. So we'll set that over to our next meeting and we'll not be taking up item number 6 tonight. All right, that moves us forward then in the agenda to item number 7, which is public comment. And as I indicated earlier, anybody wishing to make comment about the bond measure, the resolution in support of the bond may do so either in public comment now, 7, or there's a special public comment under 10C as we discuss the bond resolution, support resolution. So I have a number of people signed up for public comment. And we'll start first with Christine Savitsky.
Thank you very
Good
much.
evening.
My name's Christina Savitsky, and I'm a homeless veteran who usually is around the Mount Lake Terrace and the Edmonds area. On Sunday, the 19th, somebody left their motorcycle out on the sidewalk at night, and I could not see it. I ran into it. The fire department was called to come get the motorcycle off of me. Can I go?
Yes, please
Oh,
go ahead.
okay.
Sorry.
And when the fire department, everything was fine until it came time, they noticed I was in my 420-pound big chair. I wasn't in this little chair. When they got me into the ambulance, 3 firemen said the fire department could not transport power chairs to the hospital. They could deliver it to my home. And as I explained to them, I'm homeless and I have a van that's parked about 5 blocks away and they'd have to get it in. They told me they were going to leave it on the street. And this is a $47,000 piece of equipment. I asked to not go to be transported to Swedish, and they radioed in, and my chair would be brought to me. At Swedish, the older fireman came up to me after he brought my chair in. He said, "Someone like me should not be allowed out at night. Am I not prohibited by my doctor to be out at night? Why am I out?" First of all, that is not appropriate from anybody in the fire department to discuss something like that. It just wasn't. And his tone was just, it put me in tears, how bad I felt. Then he went on to say, the fire department will never transport my chair again. This is a one-time exception, reiterated this 2 more times, and said the fire department is, quoting, "and not in the business of transporting wheelchairs or devices." I was totally in tears at Swedish at that point. The next day, because I know this Mount Lake Terrace department, because that's where I park, right by the station, the city hall and everything. I asked them, and they couldn't find any formal policy on power chair transportation in anything they knew about. And in fact, had moved me several times when it had broken down. People had called and they'd come push me up a hill and stuff. Always been kind and courtesy. I had never, ever been treated in this way with the 11 times in 30 years fire department has come for accidents or other injuries that, and it's almost always I'm hit by something or knocked out of the chair. Bellevue has transported me twice in the last year, and they have a brand new program. They brought a brand new vehicle that has a lift. Shoreline has their own little pickup truck that they pull out of their back garage to help me, and they helped me 2.5 years ago. And Seattle uses a different department to be able to transport. It's like Parks and Recs or something like that. They're bigger, they have more. I am upset there is no policy to help with power chair, medical device, in all of South County Fire. At least consistency between the fire department buildings and the people themselves. But it clearly is a big difference between Mount Lake Terrace and my experience with Edmonds. I'm terrified to get hurt in Edmonds ever again because I can't leave a $47,000 power chair along 76. It won't be there when somebody were to finally bring back. And in closing, the gentleman who dropped my chair said, Swedish has plans to transport people back to their chairs. They have this all planned out. I talked to 2 head social workers. Swedish has no plans. And so had I relied on them saying, oh, Swedish would get me back to my chair, I'd have no way to get back to my chair. So we need to work on, as a city, a policy about power chair device transport and somehow get people back to their device. They need to go with us to the hospital because they are our legs. And I understand my big one's 400 pounds, but I have seen Shoreline, a tiny department, get it to me at the hospital, same hospital as Swedish. So thank you very much. And I'd like you all to really, really consider having a wheelchair policy, transport policy within our cities. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your
Thank
comments,
you.
Ms. Savitsky, and I'm sure the chief will take those under advisement. Our next public comments are from Barb Heidel. Good evening.
There we go. Sorry.
Good evening.
Barb Heidel.
Heidel, sorry.
Heidel. Thank you. As part of the committee to organize Mill Creek's Police Department's National Night Out, we look forward to having South County Fire present at our event on August 4th at Buffalo Park. I would like to personally invite the Board of Commissioners to attend our National Night Out event on that evening. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, next on the list, and I'm not sure if this is for regular public comment or the bond public comment, but we have Jim Landers. If you wish to speak now, please come forward.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Landers. Can you please state your name for the record and spell your last name?
Yes, my name is Jim Landers. I live in Edmonds at 1204 Viewland Way. I have been a resident of Edmonds for 10 years. I wanted to make sure this evening that you recognize that there are people who wish to express a con position on the capital ballot initiative in November. And I can explain why, but all I really wanted to do tonight was just to let you know that.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Landers. And we do have your application for the con committee, which we will be taking up in a few moments. Great. Thank you, Mr. Landers. Is there anyone else here in the room? I'm going to go to the Zoom platform in just a moment. Anybody else in the room that wishes to make public comment to the board? If not, let me turn over to Ms. Blankenship and see, do we have any requests for public comment on our Zoom platform?
We do not this evening.
Very good. I'll come back one last time to the room. Any request for additional requests for public comment in the room? If not, thank you. We will move forward then in the agenda to our next item, which is item number 8 and the fire chief's report. Good evening, Chief Maxwell.
Thank you, Chair Kennedy. I have a few items tonight as the system loads here. I wanted to brief the board on a quite an extensive rescue we had out on the Sound late in the evening, Saturday night. A person jumped off the fishing pier and started swimming out into the darkness. It caused quite a large response. Marine 16 responded. The technical rescue team came down, inflated their Zodiac and launched their 10-foot boat. The ferry launched their boat. The Coast Guard came in with their boat. So we had 4 boats. We had 2 of our, law enforcement brought down their 2 drones, and it was it was impressive. All the training that our marine operators do. Started a grid search. They did a 2-hour grid search for the victim, and after about 2 hours, it was getting to be like potentially miles out of our jurisdiction. So the Coast Guard said it was their jurisdiction. They'd be taking over, and we were able to efficiently transfer over the grid search to the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard took over doing an air search. They fly out of Port Angeles, and they started searching with the helicopter after that. And they were able to locate the person about 1 a.m. And they used their rescue swimmers to get them out of the water, and everything ended well in the end. But it was a very good coordinated response from multiple agencies. We've actually gone over to Port Angeles and met them because they are our helicopter response for the Sound. We've discussed how we could do rescues, picking victims off the back of our boat, creating that relationship. So this is the first time they've came over and actually picked out of the waters with the rescue swimmers off of Edmonds. We learned some good things there. One, in the future, when we look at future boats, our boat is a little too small to work with the helicopters and lift and lower patients onto there. So that's something we've learned. We've learned drones are really important. We had 2 drones up in the air, but getting those drones up faster as we develop our drone program will be important. Another interesting thing we learned is so our technical rescue has an inflatable Zodiac that they can rapidly inflate and deploy, which they did because the waters were very calm. We don't want to put too many of those boats out there. But we were able to use that smaller boat to look under the pier and around the breakwater that Marine 16 can't get into. So that was a great learning lesson The other thing is having more lights on some of those smaller boats. So uh, it ended up having a happy ending, but I think there was a ton of lessons learned for us to get better as we move forward with our programs. The other thing that we're looking at talking about, can you play that? That may or may not play, but this is the actual rescue footage from the Coast Guard helicopter and the rescue swimmer going down to rescue the victim and pull them out of the water. The other thing that probably either this year or next, we're one of the only large agencies that don't have a rescue swimmer program. So all of our rescues are above water, but we don't do anything, not these kind of rescue swimmers, but yeah. But the rescue swimmers that would be deploying from like our fire engines and our boats. So that's something we would be looking at in the next couple of years as well. The U.S. Coast Guard rescue swimmers are they're basically the special forces of the Coast Guard, and they are superhuman beings in what they're able to do. It's quite impressive. But they're great partners, and they've talked about working more and doing more drills and exercises with them for these exact possibilities. Come up there. Well, we don't have to play the whole video, but that is the actual rescue there.
Chief, before you move on.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Furnoff wanted to say something about that.
Yeah, I want to say that the media was reporting that the swimmer was actually located 2 miles
Correct.
out
Yes.
in the sound. So you take into account the currents, slack, and tides, all of these things that were influential. And I think what you described was a great representation of a coordinated search effort from all agencies. I mean, that's awesome. You had the drones up, and I'm sure once the helicopter launched,
They
the
were
drones
down.
had to be grounded, so we
Correct.
didn't get a conflict of airspace. But fantastic. That's just a great success story.
Yeah, thank you. It really speaks to, we do so much training, and to be able to do a sophisticated grid search and to be able to seamlessly turn that over to the Coast Guard to continue their search. Oh, and I guess the Coast Guard was on their very last pass when they found her. Yeah, but they were able to use theirs. They had sophisticated, I mean, watching the tides and where all the movement. So, I mean, that's a lot of training, and it all worked out. All the training was put to work, and it all contributed to the whole team saving a life. So just the importance of having a very sophisticated Marine program.
Commissioner Shannon has a question.
Yeah, I heard the news too. He said that she was, is that her, right?
Yeah.
She was identified by another swimmer. That's not true?
She
Yeah.
No, she was alone.
So she swam all this time intentionally, is not on certain thing, and
Yeah, I don't know what her choices were. We were just out there to save her.
okay. I'm just amazing that we did, but I think a lot of people don't realizing that.
Yeah,
There's a lot of manpower being occupied,
yeah.
being used, right? I don't know how many people. They become overtime and all of that, and the training itself. I think a lot of time our constituent thinking, oh, we just go to the home and pick up something, but the thing like that is a lot of money to prepare. If we need a bigger boat, and then again, that's another investment we need to pay.
Yeah.
But I guess we always have the thing, no matter what the reason is, we still go and help the person, right? Now, what time did she jump off? Did anybody know?
I think around 9 p.m.
So if somebody saw him jump off, if it's,
Yeah,
if
it was off the fishing pier. There's actually a lot of people out there on the
Yeah.
fishing pier.
Well, I'm
Even
glad somebody said, but do we have any sign to say, do not jump off this? I think majority of people have sign like that.
we can check on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it might be really serious. I
Yeah,
mean,
thank you.
yeah. As a violation of law, I assume too.
I don't know. We just rescue people, Commissioner.
No, but I wanted to know prevention part of
Yes,
it.
yes,
Think about it.
understood. Thank you
Yeah,
for,
thank you.
thank you.
Commissioner Walkom.
Yeah, thank you for that brief. I don't think majority of the people understand how complex a coordinated handoff is and how often you have to practice and drill those type of things. It's one of those things that I just want to acknowledge the work, the communications, the effort, the coordination that goes into that, and really acknowledge and give compliments to the team and leadership that were able to pull off this multifaceted rescue. That's an incredible story. I'm glad that it ended well, and I'm just really happy to hear that the training that we're investing in, the organization is coming together to be able to accomplish something so complex as this. And so, again, congratulations.
Thanks for recognizing that. Yeah, I'm extremely proud of the Marine program and how it all came together. It just shows that doing a lot of hard, sophisticated training does pay off and does save lives.
On this subject? Commissioner
Yeah, on
Chan?
this,
Yes.
yeah.
Go ahead.
So as right now, basically the whole region from here all to Musketeer, we're the only fire department have that kind of service, right? So everybody's relying on us.
From Seattle to Everett has a police boat.
Police have pretty bow, but still under here. But were they participating in that or no? They didn't.
No, they did not respond.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Chief. Go ahead on your roll.
Okay, thank you. And thank you to the commissioners that participated in various levels at the Mount Lake Terrace Parade. And thank you, Chief Chalfant, for being the honorary fire chief. Down there, we had a great crowd, great participation. And then we had one commissioner that had to make sure the real fire truck entered the parade. So a special thanks to Commissioner Fahrenhoff for getting the Rio started. And then we had Commissioner Kenny and Commissioner Chan. Was any other commissioners? Okay. Well, thank you for attending and participating. And it was a great event had by all. And that concludes my report. Well, I do have one more thing. We again with commissioners and administration and coordinated by Communications Director Bailey, we had a great meeting with City of Mount Lake Terrace, introducing the new fire chief, talking about some of our accomplishments and what we provide as a RFA, and then going over the bond specifically stations and response issues related to the bond around the city of Linwood. And I think we had a great interaction. And I think the biggest winner there was Commissioner Chan got another team for the Dragon Boat. So, but it was otherwise, I think it was a very positive and great interaction, great relationship building. With that, I will conclude my report and take any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Questions for the chief on the chief's report? Commissioner Fahrenhoff.
So as somebody who's spent some time in the Coast Guard Rescue Center, I would find it extremely valuable if our Marine unit could go down and sit with the SAR desk folks and introduce them into some of the applications that there are. I forget the name of it, but if you can imagine throwing a bunch of ping pong balls in the water and then watching them disperse and which way they go. That's one of the tools that they use in the SAR desk, the search and rescue desk. And they relay that information, but understanding that that model is available, and I believe they can transmit that data, right? Probably through a web app or something like that. So if you're not already on that page, there's a lot of things that occur behind the curtain that I would encourage just to go down and sit with them. And even from my time, which is a long time ago now, they probably got new widgets and new things that, would probably kind of blow your mind. And it may even tie in with your drone. So provide data to your drone in order to say, okay, here's your overlay, and this is the pattern by which you're going to follow. Things move so fast technologically, but that's just a snapshot of some of the old things.
Thank you.
I would encourage that hand holding.
Okay, John.
Yeah, we are in contact really almost daily with Coast Guard. I was down at 17s today talking with the crew, and they had Marine radio on in the background got their attention, one picked up the phone real quick, called Seattle Coast Guard, got confirmation on what was happening on that particular one. Wasn't in our area, so they decided not to roll, but they said they picked up a few calls just by having that on in the background, having that good direct contact with Coast Guard on a regular basis.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Any other questions for the chief on the chief's report? If not, thank you, chief.
Thank you.
All right, that moves us forward in the agenda to item number 9, which is the union report from Local 1828. And I did not see anybody on Zoom for that. Ms. Blankenship, anything? Chief, anything? No. I don't think we have anybody for the union's report this evening. So not seeing any indication of it. Thank you. We will then move forward in the agenda to item number 10, which is capital facilities planning. And we start with the con committee appointments to the fire and EMS bond measure voters pamphlet. And board members, it was handed out to you up here on the dais. We have 3, the deadline was extended to yesterday, Monday, the 20th at 5 p.m. And through that time, we have 3 applicants for the con committee, and that is Mary Jane Goss, Jim Landers, and Melinda Goforth. So I think that actually makes our decision an easy one because we have 3 spots on the con committee and we have 3 applicants, so that matches up nicely. So my suggestion in a moment is that I'll make a motion to appoint those 3 to the con committee and let them sort out who is the chair of the committee. But I wanted to see if there were other comments or thoughts because because we set the deadline so close to today, we didn't have a chance to talk about process. I don't know that we need a lot of process, but if there are other comments or thoughts about how to proceed, please. Commissioner Chan, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm glad that we make the decision to extending it and basically give opportunity to a lot of people to apply. And I did go through, just Google it, just names and people, and many of them are pretty good citizens of Edmonds, and they have one is a realtor and a couple other ones. So I would suggest that I'm glad that somebody signed up rather than we have to appoint someone that I know. So I'm glad that we did the process, let the people know. Christy, we just go out and press release to encouraging people that the con group and I'm sorry, I caught you for that.
So prior to the extension, we had actually sent a press release. We had about a 3-week period of time that was open to people to apply. And then we had actually published an ad in the paper as well. And then once the extension was granted, we issued another press release and posted information on our website as well.
Okay.
And we also shared it when we were in Edmonds speaking at the roundtable.
Right. No, I'm glad. So somebody actually people find out. I hate to say that because a lot of people don't pay attention to South County Fire things. I think this is good. Thank you.
Other comments, questions about a process for appointing the con committee? If not, let me go ahead and make a motion to appoint Mary Jane Goss, Jim Landers, and Melinda Goforth to the con committee for the fire and EMS bond measure voters pamphlet. And a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Chan, has been moved and seconded to appoint those 3 individuals, and they can sort out who will be the chair of the committee. That is the motion. And is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Great. And Ms. Blankenship, you'll be reaching out to those members to get organized. And we have a form for them
We
to
do.
sign, and then I sign, and then it goes to the county, and then they're ready
Official.
ready to do business. Okay,
Yes.
great. Thank you. All right, that was item 10A, and that moves us forward in the agenda to item 10B, which is bond explanatory statement for approval with Director Veely. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. We've looked at this explanatory statement now a few times, so we bring it to you tonight, hoping for the board's approval. So this explanatory statement will appear in the voters pamphlet when people vote this November. The explanatory statement is limited to 200 words, and so we tried to get as much information in those 200 words as we possibly can to ensure that people understand what they're voting on. This explanatory statement does not require board approval, but we would like board approval before it is submitted to the county, and that deadline is August 4th. So this will be the last opportunity to do that.
Is there any questions or comments from the board members before we move to action? Any questions, comments? Okay, then I will go ahead and move that we adopt the proposed explanatory statement at page 59 of the packet as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the explanatory statement as presented. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Great. Thank you, Director Veely.
Thank you.
All right, that moves us forward in the agenda then to the item 10C, which is for discussion. This is the introduction of what will be Resolution 0805-2026-17, which is expressing support for the passage of South County Fire's Proposition Number 1. And you will find that at page 60, page 60 of the packet through page 64, with the resolution beginning at page 62. And for this item, we will have, once the board speaks, we'll have an opportunity for public comment regarding this item. And Director Veely, if you don't mind coming back up to the microphone. I know we have a Tobias Tobler online with us tonight, which is one from our bond counsel, I believe.
Yes, he is. He's with Pacifica Law Group. Who
So
we've been
did either
working with.
you or Mr. Tobler want to say anything about the statement maybe I can do a few introductory comments about it,
Sure.
and you can correct me if I'm
Yes,
wrong.
that sounds great.
Okay, so the board has an opportunity to express, although the board put the measure on the ballot previously, the board has not expressed its support for it. This is the one opportunity for the board to express support for encouraging a yes vote on the bond measure. It's the one opportunity under state law that it's allowed for that opportunity. We do that by resolution, which you see a draft in front of you. And in a few moments, anybody that wishes to comment, particularly opposed to the bond measure or the resolution in support of it, will have an opportunity to speak. But that's what this is, and this is only for discussion tonight. This would be back on our next board meeting, our regular meeting, first meeting of August. And there would be a separate opportunity for anybody wishing to make statements about it, opposing it, to speak at that time. But in abundance of caution, we'll have an opportunity tonight also. But that's what this is here, and it expresses that. Director Veely, have I missed anything there in that explanation?
I think you've summarized it nicely. We have closely followed the state's guidelines when it comes to discussing and proposing a resolution such as this. And that is why there is public comment being offered tonight.
Okay.
And August 5th.
Okay. So I'll open it to the board for any questions or comments about the resolution. Questions or comments?
Comments to show support? Or
Well,
just
about
comments
the resolution of support or the process or
the process. I think
Commissioner Chan, go ahead.
I have to make clear, back in, when we first started, actually at that time, Dave Erning is the mayor, and we have a contract agreement. We're talking about agreement, and we bring out basically two things that is in the newspaper that we said we need to start investigating our capital facility because it has been so long. So we did start the whole process. I think the board has been diligently looking at that every year, and we don't rush it into it. We have hired consultant to do it. And we're trying to really, I think some of the presentation, we're trying to, one time we have trying to get a standardized the stations, so we don't have to take additional money for each individual. And we got a lot of input from the architect, from other people. So it has been a long, long time that we've been diligently looking at it. And so, so that people know that we don't just rushing it. We're going for like three chief, or four chief. Yeah, four chief to go through the whole thing. It's a long process, and would as a commissioner, we took it very seriously to do that. And anyone who are interested, they can have a public request for all the record that we have discussed every year. Thank you.
I would just comment that I think the resolution is well drafted, and I think expresses our general support for the bond measure. So I think that it'll be good for the agenda at our next meeting. Other questions, comments about the resolution supporting the bond? If not, then I want to move to our public comment section related to this, and we'll do both in the room and on Zoom. Is there any request for in the room for public comment regarding the resolution in support of the bond measure? Any public comment, particularly any comment against it? Let me turn to Ms. Blankenship then in the our Zoom platform and see if there's any request for public comment regarding the bond measure.
There is not.
Particularly against it. No?
There is not.
There is none. I'll come back one last time to the room. Is there any request for public comment here in the room regarding the bond measure, the resolution in support of the bond measure? Not seeing any request for public comment. Thank you. I'll close that public comment. And this item will be on the agenda for the next meeting, the first meeting of August, which remember is Wednesday, August 5th this time. All right, Director Veely, just so I cross my T's and dot my I's, is there anything else on this subject we need to address tonight?
There is not, and we will be filing the final documents with county by August 4th.
The documents that need to be filed by then?
Yes, not related to this resolution,
No,
but there is, I don't believe there are any further requirements for the resolution.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Okay, that moves us forward then in the agenda to item 11, unfinished business. And we start with 11A, which is the preliminary 2027 expenditure forecast. And we have our Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Bothwell. Good evening.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. All right, so last week we started the budget process with the revenue forecast. So tonight I'm back with the status quo expenditure forecast. This is the other side of the budget equation. So tonight I'm going to start with a description of the forecasting method. I'm going to spend a little time talking about the assumptions that we used in this forecast. I will go into the results, starting with the adjustments to the baseline budget. And I'll describe a little more about what those are. And then we'll look at our two primary expense categories, employee expenditures and non-employee expenditures. Then we'll look at the total results. And then I also want to highlight for you all what's not included in this forecast. So I wanted to take some of the mystery out of the forecast just by telling you, just distilling what we do down into a few simple steps. So we start with the 2026 budget or the current year budget. We remove any one-time items, so anything that's not required to maintain current levels of service gets pulled out. Then we adjust for known changes. So these are any items that have come up since the budget was adopted that we need to include in the budget because they've come up generally after the budget was adopted. We group expenditures into classes, and I'm going to tell you about two classes tonight. That's employee expenditures and non-employee expenditures. At this stage of the budget, we're painting with a really broad brush. So I'll show you some details within those classes, but those are the two primary expenditure classes that we're going to look at. We apply the best available data to predict the value in the coming year. We add it all up, and the result is the status quo budget. So the assumptions in this budget or in this forecast are that salaries and wages will increase at the rate of inflation. And for that, we use our local CPIW. For almost 90% of our labor costs, that's dictated by the labor contract. Benefits, the other assumption is that benefits will increase at the rate of salaries and wages inflation, except for healthcare. We talk about healthcare all the time, so you probably know where that's going. Most of the other benefits have some relationship to the rate of inflation for salaries and wages. For non-employee expenditures, that's services and supplies, we increase that by headline inflation, so we use national CPIU for that. And then asset replacement costs are based on our schedule of assets replacements, and we have a 4% escalator in that. So that's the number we use for those. So it's really common for us to have some adjustments that we need to make to the budget for things that we didn't know when the budget was developed. And so there's a sort of an unusual number of those this year, and the value of them is a little higher than what we're used to too. So I wanted to highlight these for you. The first item on here, so these are adjustments we're making to the 26 budget so that we end up, so we're starting from a place of exactly what it costs to maintain current levels of service in the next year. So the first one is we pulled out one-time items, and those are, the value of those is about $330,000. We pulled out the 10 roadmap positions that were budgeted but not authorized. So the 26 budget had 30 roadmap positions in it. They were budgeted, but they weren't authorized. And then later in the year, the board authorized 20 of those. So the 10 that were not authorized, we agreed to pull those back out. So that's a credit of about $1.7 million. The third item there is the 1828. So that's our labor contract. That was settled in January. So after the budget was adopted, there were some increases related to compensation in that. The value of those is about $1 million. So that's a increase in our expenditure forecast. The L&I experience rate increase. So, you know, our experience with L&I went way up this year. That we got notice of that in January as well. So that's not in the current budget. So there's an adjustment of $1 million for that. And then there were some discretionary changes or sort of mid-budget cycle requests that the chief brought to you a few weeks ago. And so we're adding those, and the value of those is just under $1.5 million. So the total baseline adjustment is just under $1.5 million net of sort of some pluses and negatives there. So moving on to 2027. So I told you earlier, we're only going to look at two expenditure categories. So we put everything into either employee or non-employee expenditures. So I'll highlight the big ticket items here. The first one for employee expenditures is the cost of living adjustment. So the contract calls for a 3.8% increase for wages for all of our represented folks next year. That accounts for almost 90% of our salaries and wages. The other 10% is actually at the discretion of the board, but for the forecast, we put that at the same 3.8%. There's a healthcare increase that's in excess of inflation. So last week when I did the self-insurance report, I told you that we're expecting an abnormally large increase for our the healthcare self-insurance rates that we charge ourselves. The value of that is approximately $1.1 million. We have merit increases, which this is when our firefighters they progress through the steps. So they go from a firefighter 1 to a firefighter 2 and so on. So anybody who's not at senior firefighter yet, we program in an increase for them, and we're contractually obligated to do that. There's also for admin folks. So that one's contractually obligated, but for admin folks, if they're not at top step, we assume a merit increase for all those folks as well, but that is at the discretion of the supervisor. But for the purposes of the forecast, we include that just like we do for the represented folks. That's about a $500,000 adjustment. And then the final one there is the overtime inflation increase. And this is just based on the cost of wages going up. And that's a $300,000 item. So the total employee expenditure increases is forecast to be $5.6 million. So the other big class that we're looking at is non-employee increases for 2027. So we have supplies and services inflation. So again, we're inflating this by CPIU, so national headline inflation. The value of that increase is about $700,000. And then there's the asset replacement inflation at the 4% that I described a minute ago for $200,000. So the non-employee increases total just under $1 million. So the forecasted increase required to maintain current status quo compared to the 2026 budget is about $8 million or 6%. And I just wanted to highlight that last week when I did the revenue forecast, I shared that the status quo revenue increase was going to be $1.5 million approximately. So we've got about a $6.5 million delta there that we need to solve for. And you all have been around local governments long enough to know that that's not an uncommon position for us to be starting the budget process. Almost all local governments start the budget process with a situation like this. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of things that are not in the forecast. One is we have station operations overtime is trending high again. So the chief's working on some stuff to see if we can manage that without an increase in the budget. So that's not factored in. The other one is the roadmap next steps are not factored in. So those 10 positions that were not authorized this year and the 10 that are on the roadmap for next year, those are not included in this forecast either. So I wanted to highlight that. This is just to continue what we're currently doing. And that's the presentation. So I'll take this down and take any questions if there are any.
Commissioner Lawrence and Commissioner Furnoff. Commissioner Lawrence.
Yes, CFO Bothwell, I actually understood that sort of. Can we do something, like the state does, spend money we don't have? And therefore, can we implement an income tax on our citizens?
No, I don't think that's any of the options we have.
Oh, heck. Oh, sorry about that.
Commissioner Furnoff.
Yes, sir. CFO Bothwell, thank you for the presentation. I too understood it. So you're on a good trend right now. If I remember right, we had a larger than expected GEMT that came in this year, $12 million. I think your forecast was 8. How is this factor in to resolving that delta of 6 million?
So that's a great question. So we're looking strictly at the ongoing cost to fund the organization, and we're considering anything that's potentially going to be at risk with the changes in the methodology for the GEMT calculation to be one-time money. And so our policy says that we need to spend that on one-time expenditures. Everything that's in here is ongoing operating expenditures. So that money doesn't go anywhere. We still have it. But we are not, just based on our policies and based on the previous conversations on that topic, we're not forecasting to use that on operating expenses.
So if I understand you correctly, we're compartmentalized
Correct.
in our approach.
Yeah.
And that's just by our own governing policy, right? There's no law that says we can't take that money if we needed it and apply it somewhere else.
Correct. The alternative would be that we have a plan for when the changes do come to the program and that loss of revenue, that we have something that we're going to implement as soon as we see those actually go into effect. So.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Walkerman.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. For being my first, I kind of got it. So my first question is from 2025 to 2026, what were you estimating the increase?
25 to 26?
Yeah, last year.
So last year was a little more complicated because we had an annexation. And so it was a little bit different, but I don't recall exactly.
Okay. I didn't know if 6% increase is typical or if that's high.
It's a little higher than what we would expect in these conditions. And part of that is those items that are happening, the L&I increases, the healthcare increases, some of those things that are really extraordinary. The labor contract increase, we don't do those are things we don't do every year. So those are the primary drivers. If we would probably expect to have something closer to 4% under normal circumstances, just based on the inflationary environment. So a couple $1 million swing is due to those extraordinary items.
Okay. And just with L&I and medical and the rate of the world we're living in, this is kind of the new norm, would you suggest? I mean, it seems like almost every conversation is how medical is increasing faster than expected.
I don't know that I would characterize it as the new norm for year over year. I think that things will probably stabilize. I would expect that things would kind of stabilize. Generally, we would be able to control expenses for a forecast like an early forecast like this. We would expect to see them closer to inflation. Inflation is really our biggest challenge.
Okay. Does call demand go into this conversation? Because I know our call demand is also increasing about 3% per year, which is increasing costs and it has its own impact.
So obviously that does affect the cost for us to provide services, but that's not factored necessarily into this. So some of the increases that we saw with like 20 additional staff to get the staffing factor up and be able to up staff a little bit, that's sort of our answer to that, to the call demand question.
Okay.
This is really taking what we're doing this year and just pushing it forward and saying, what are the factors we can't affect? How are they affecting our budget? And that's sort of what this early look is.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, comments for CFO Bothwell? Mr. Bothwell, I do have a question for you. You know, I don't know that we've spoken recently about the L&I increase. I know we've talked about L&I in the past and some L&I programs that we've had in the past to try and reduce our rating. But I guess for one of our upcoming meetings, I'd like to have more of a presentation about where we've been, again, a little bit of a roadmap of where we've been and maybe a little forecasting into the future of where we're going with L&I. Because the $1 million is, you know, it's not insignificant, shall we say.
Yeah, and I think it's a great conversation for us to be having, and the administration is doing a lot of work on that topic. And so I think that I think it's a great topic for us to bring back to you during budget season. So I'll make a note for that.
Sounds good. Thank you. Commissioner Chan, did you have a question?
No, I just support that. I think we need, I mentioned many times, I think we can consolidate the idea, put in a plan to do it.
Other questions, comments for CFO Bothwell? No? Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that moves us forward in the agenda to item 11B, which is organizational roadmap, annual accountability report. Oh, with CFO Bothwell.
Thank you again. Okay, so this is the organizational roadmap annual accountability updates. We did this last year just to set a baseline. So this is our first year where we actually have some comparative data. And I just want to start with the purpose of the roadmap accountability report is to check in on roadmap assumptions. So there's a long-term forecast in the roadmap. We're checking in on those assumptions to ensure that the actual financial conditions are considered.
Do you have a copy of that?
I think you gave it to Commissioner Lawrence. So the purpose of this is to check in on the assumptions to ensure that the actual financial conditions are considered as we move forward with next steps for roadmap implementation. So there's 5 data points that we agreed to monitor annually. The first one is general inflation. That's the national CPIU. So that's the headline inflation. There's labor inflation, which is our local CPIW. That's the one that our labor contracts call for. Assessed value change and new construction. There's the actual levy and benefit charge rates. And then finally, it's staffing factor and overtime. So we'll just get right into where these landed. So this first one is the general inflation. That's the headline inflation CPIU. It affects all of our non-employee costs. The roadmap forecast assumed 3.5% increase in a straight line. So that applies to this year, to 2026 and 2027. The 2027 actual number, so this is June to June national CPIU, was 3.5%. So this one is neutral. There's no variance actual to forecast. So not much to report there. This next one is labor inflation. So this is our local CPIW. This affects almost all of our employee costs. And so the roadmap assumed the same 3.5% that I mentioned in the last one. The actual this year was 3.8%. So we have a negative variance of 0.3%, which is relatively minor. But it's important to remember that labor is our #1 expenditure. So even though the variance is small, the numbers do add up pretty quickly. So that one's a negative. Next, we have assessed value and new construction. So this is one where we're looking at what the limited information that we have from the county assessor about where we think or where they think assessed value is going next year or for the 27 tax roll. Our roadmap forecast was 4% for the change in assessed value. That's every year 4%. It's an average. And our new construction as a percentage is 1%. That's what we've historically got. So the preliminary county-wide data suggests a contraction of assessed value of 1%. So this is an actual to forecast variance that's negative of 5%. On new construction, we don't have any good data yet. but it never varies too far from the 1% historically. So we put that in at 1% and expecting not a large variance there. So this one is also a negative variance. This one's current year actual levies and benefit charge rates. This compares the actual rates to the guiding principle targets. So you all may recall that we have guiding principles for our funding that go along with the roadmap. The actual 2026 levies, and so we're looking at 2026 here because we don't have, when we finish the budget season in 2020 for 2026 budget, we don't have the final tax roll. So this is just us reflecting on what happened and where we are currently. So the 2026 actual, the combined levy for fire and EMS was $1.16. Our target is $1.20. So that's a positive. And then our benefit charge, the equivalent is 18 cents and our target was 20 to 40 cents. So it's not an unexpected result because we're early in the implementation of the roadmap, but it is positive. And then our final one is our staffing factor. So this compares the actual and forecasted staffing factors to the long-term targets. We had it just a couple weeks ago on June 30th, 2026, we have an actual staffing factor of 4.5%. We're forecasting to end the year at 4.8%. So that assumes that we've got 20 graduates from the fall academy. And then our long-term discussion target was 5.5%. So that's sort of where we were targeting to go over the long run. And so again, that's a negative variance, but it's not unexpected. We're early in implementation for the roadmap, so we didn't expect to be at the 5.5. Just because it's an interesting fact, we were forecasting to be at the end of 2026. We were forecasting to be at 5.0, and that was because we were expecting to have 30 new hires rather than the 20 that we had authorized. So the conclusion is that we had one positive measure, one neutral, and three negative. And the conclusion is that careful consideration should be given to the timing of next steps for the roadmap implementation. So I know that's sort of an unpopular message, but I think we do have to consider whether the full thing that had been planned for next year is really appropriate, or if it should be something less, or if we pause, or that's a conversation that we should have based on this, if these are important measures about whether we move on with a modified path. So that's the end of the presentation on those.
Mr. Bothwell, could you go back to the assessed value, the new construction assessed value slide that you had?
Yeah.
And on there, I guess I'd like to, as we get into the further budget discussions in the fall, I'd like to have a little bit more discussion about that assessed value and particularly the change of the -1%. Because I'm trying to remember, I know we have had negative, but I'm thinking back a long way. What was our last negative assessed value?
Okay, I'll bring that back to you. I want to say we've had 1 or 2 years since 2008 where it's gone negative, really kind of small values like this, but I'll bring back an analysis for you.
Because I would like to see that, and just so we can think a little bit about into the future about, are we going to see more of that? Is the area of, it just comes to my mind, is the area of South County Fire built out? My answer is no, it's not. But is it more built out than Surfers area is? I would say yes. They're probably going to expect more new construction into the future than we are. But just thinking a little bit about that and how that might impact our assessed value. I just think it would be worth some discussion to think about for the future.
Yeah, great. I'll make a note. We'll bring that back.
Commissioner Walker.
Yeah, can you go to your the staffing where we're at 4.5, 5.5? Question is this slide is for first responders and basically for the engine, correct? To make sure that we have.
This is just, station operations. So anybody on days gets excluded. Anybody in this room gets excluded.
Okay. And that's where my question was, is how many staff does it take to support the 5.5? And do we have any analysis on that? Because I know one person cannot support the entire RFA. So I was wondering, in terms of staffing, admin, and those numbers, how many people does it take to support the total force to get to that long-term discussion, or even, where we're at right now? Effectively, so that they can accurately or efficiently accomplish their mission without the challenges that we're facing.
Yeah, So that was, so last year when we did the roadmap project, that was the long-term target. So the roadmap goes over 7 year, I believe it's 7 years. And the additions there's adds to staff, I think in every year of it, to get us up to that 5.5%. So we can bring that back as well, at least just for a refresher to let you know kind of what's in the roadmap. That
Please.
probably is a good topic.
Other questions, comments for Mr. Bothwell on the on this organizational roadmap accountability update? If not, thank you, Mr. Bothwell.
Okay, thank you all.
Great. All right, that moves us forward in the agenda to item 11C, which is a return to the social media public use policy, just for discussion tonight. And we have Director Veely.
Thank you for bearing with me for just a moment
Sure.
here.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you for having me back to continue this discussion. Some moons ago, before I transitioned into working for fire departments, I worked for the TV news industry. I was the executive producer for Q13 News in Seattle. I oversaw the morning show, I oversaw the evening show, and we told the stories of our community. And so traditionally, that is how the sharing of information worked. With most emergency and government organizations, you have an incident, you put out a press release, the media would be more than happy to tell your story and then share that story with potentially hundreds of thousands of people. But that is no longer the case. Newsrooms are getting smaller and less connected. Newspapers are publishing less or closing altogether. And so reporters are also not showing up to our incidents to tell that story like they used to. So it is up to us now to tell our story. We create the content that shows our community the great work that we're doing here. And we have to gather the audience to witness that story. So the most powerful tool we have to do that is social media. On Facebook alone, we know that 71% of adults in the country are on Facebook. At the last meeting, we talked about how our Facebook audience has increased about 400% over the last 2 years. And so today I wanted to show you a little bit of how we're doing that and how we're communicating with our audiences on social media.
We have some new tiller operators that we're training. The big thing is spatial awareness, knowing where you're at and where other vehicles are at and where other people are at.
Go in, do some reconnaissance, and figure out what we need to do to get that person out. They were unconscious in this scenario, so we had to package the patient.
I do it because I genuinely do care about each and every patient that I see in the street.
We're gonna get you out of here, okay?
Push, we're up.
Hell Day is when we try to throw everything that they have learned in the last 16 weeks in Academy all together.
Carbon monoxide alarms come in different styles and different price points.
I had no prior fire experience. I just knew I was interested and wanted to learn more about it, but I wasn't really sure if I was capable.
You can do it! You got it!
But going through both the days of this workshop really gave me the confidence boost that I needed to even just apply.
There's a lot of different hydraulics and friction loss and things we have to kind of learn how to manage. They get the ability to now see what it's like to be the person on the pump panel who's sending that pressure.
Do not open the oven door. Close the oven door, turn the heat off, because the fire needs oxygen to burn.
The biggest thing is if lights and sirens come up behind you, pull to the right, slow down, come to a complete stop. For the most part, we generally don't drive over the posted speed limits. We're just using the lights and sirens to make our way through traffic. We're just trying to get through traffic as fast as possible to get to the call.
This is my 30th year in the fire service, and I was actually hired with the first women in the department. And I see them in all the different divisions and areas, and they bring so much value, such different perspectives, and we just love that. It just makes us better.
Cyanokit is an antidote for cyanide. It's basically a form of vitamin B12. There's going to be several of these kits available at all of our house fires.
Dude, that's crazy. That is wild.
So that's just a little sampling of some of the content that we've put out on social media in the last few months to tell the story of our people and our service. South County Fire's presence on social media is relatively new. Before 2023, we really didn't have the staff to support a robust social media presence. And so we were primarily posting graphics. So now as our staff has grown, we have been able to grow this form of communication. As you can understand, we're getting a lot more engagement. So back then, having a social media policy wasn't a big priority, understandably. But now, with our engagement, and in order to keep that conversation constructive, staff strongly recommends we do have a social media policy. So I wanted to show you some of the comments that we get on our Facebook page. For example, we get a lot of great feedback and it's overwhelmingly positive. I don't know if you can really see this. There's a conversation. Somebody was asking what stations would be included in the bond, and we were able to respond to them and direct them to our website for more information. Somebody says, congratulations, thank you for everything you do. Thank you for being so kind and compassionate. We appreciate you. Thank you for extinguishing the brush fire so quickly. Bless those firefighters. This is overwhelmingly the kind of feedback that we receive on social media. So I wanted to address a couple of the specific issues that we discussed during our last conversation on this topic. One is the clause that is currently in the drafted social media policy that would allow staff to turn off comments on posts once those comments reach about 100. So in the last year, we've only had 2 posts reach over 100 comments. To give you some context on that, both posts had gone viral. One of them on April 7th, I want to show you some of the data around that. So these are statistics that show us who was watching that content that received over 100 comments. This post on April 7th went viral. It had over 300 comments. It had 3 million views. And if you look, less than 1% of our followers watched that content because it was suggested to them. Most of the people who watched that content watched it because Facebook suggested it to them. They were not our followers. They were not our primary audience. And then if you look over to the right, only a quarter of the people who watched that content were even in the United States, to give you some perspective on the conversation. Here's the other post that had over 100 comments. This was on June 28th. And look, 86% of the people who commented on this post, who viewed this post, rather, are not followers. So why I share this is because I want to convey that the people that are commenting and creating this sort of viral post, this is not our target audience. This is not, our community who we are trying to reach. This is, the Facebook algorithm taking a post kind of beyond our scope and control even. And sometimes it's a little unpredictable, but it's also rare. So when I look back at the last year, we had less than 10 posts that even got into the 60 to 80 comment range. That's why I thought the 100 comment threshold was a good threshold, because it's really not going to impact the majority of our conversations with people. It is really reserved for those posts that are going viral and going beyond our target audience. So one of the other points of the discussion last week was, should we even allow comments on our Facebook page? So there was a study done on this recently. Researchers at the University of Alabama and Vanderbilt University did a study, and they found that public officials, and when we say public officials, we're talking about public figures, influencers, when they turned off comments, they were perceived as being less persuasive, less likable, and less receptive to feedback. Comments with the social media algorithm, comments carry more weight than passive engagement. You can like things, you can love things, you can do hearts and all that kind of stuff, but comments carry more weight. So if you want your content to be seen, if you want to be successful in social media, you would want to allow comments. You can disallow them and you can still do your work, but it's like doing the work with one hand tied behind your back. I will also share, I'm going to stop this year. So, I did my own research and I looked at virtually every government agency and every fire department in Snohomish County. Not one of them has disabled comments on their social media. And so if we were to make that decision to do that, we would be an outlier, and not in a very positive way. What I did find was many agencies that have a very similar public policy for social media as the one that's being presented to the board. I have included a lot of those examples in your packet tonight, so you can kind of see the similarities. The language is pretty common, and our attorney Matt Paxton is joining us tonight. He can attest to that as well. Also in your packet is a copy of the board's current policy on commenting. And what strikes me about that is it carries many of the same sort of boundaries in place as to what we're trying to do with social media. It's a new avenue to communicate, but it is one of the most powerful tools we have right now to communicate with our audience. I believe that with proper boundaries, we can keep those conversations constructive and maintain transparency and continue to engage with our community. So I welcome any discussion and questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Lawrence.
Yes, Christian, could you go back to that page where you're showing the increase percentage of viewers or whatever it was? So we have growing audience. Is there any way to tell how much of that audience is from within South County?
So I looked today at our current statistics. More than 70% of our audience is from the South Snohomish County area.
I definitely, the videos that you're putting out and the information could be helpful, but are there any metrics to go along that says by us spending the time and effort, money, citizen and taxpayer money to do that, how it benefits us in any way? Does it get us more recruits? What are the positives there that you could actually say, we've tracked this, this is what we do for the amount of money expended, there's this return on investment? Okay. And the comments thing, turning off comments, okay, 90%, 86% was people commenting on that live in different countries practically. Is there a way to limit to, like within the state of Washington anyway? Is there any way to limit that? There's no way.
No, it's only there are a few ways you can limit comments, and it's different on each platform. For Facebook, you can only do it per post, and you can, the primary way that you can do it is to, only allow people that you basically name can comment. And so it's a tedious process if you want to, specifically have certain people comment.
So I imagine a lot of the stuff I don't know. Most of the comments, if they're positive, they actually are negative. Do they actually know what they're talking about?
I think so. The majority of comments are people who support what we're doing. We do see a lot of kind of super fans out there, people who we have helped multiple times, or possibly they're family members of friends of firefighters, or just have connected with us in some way. But generally, most of the comments are just supportive, like, we're so glad you guys are doing what you're doing. That is the vast majority. And so I wanted you guys to understand that, because if we do decide to limit or turn off that the small minuscule amount of negative engagement, we're also limiting our positive engagement, which is really the vast majority of what we see.
How much time does it take to monitor? Do we have to? Could you just put stuff out there and we don't even look at the comments, because that's time and effort. Okay, let them comment, and whatever happens, happens.
Most of the time, the comments aren't tedious to manage because they are overwhelmingly positive. Our PIO team receives notifications on our phones, so we can kind of see when people are commenting. There's things that, we've learned over the years that might create some discussion. Fireworks, for example, or something like that. We might keep a closer eye on some posts like that. But generally, for the most part, we just see positive comments.
Do we know how much it's costing the RFA to monitor comments?
I mean, I haven't broken down our time like that. We're not, most of the time, we're not physically just sitting there monitoring comments. We're doing other things. And then if we were to get a notification about a particular comment and it seemed, concerning, then we might get in and look at it. But that's not quite how it works, where we're sitting in front of a screen and just monitoring comments all day. That was a kind of a one-off thing with a certain post.
Okay, so it does take time and effort. I don't see how we can go forward with a policy unless we actually know what it's costing us to do this service. And maybe pretty hard to quantify what the benefit is, but we should really have that before we think about a policy. And I'd sure like to not see much time put into answering comments until we get that data and have a real plan for handling comments. And even the whole social media thing, and how much time and effort does that take? And what's the benefit? I mean, I'm ready to be convinced, but right now I'd say just scrap everything with social media. So I think I think maybe some other commissioners too would feel that way, and maybe I'm alone, but prove to us why we need this and to spend the time and money for any of it, especially the comments. So, but it looked like a really good video. That was just a little snippets of very different videos, right? Collage of
yes, we post just about daily, almost every weekday at least, and we're sharing information about issues like the bond measure. We're sharing information about our firefighters, people who serve. We're sharing information about safety, like please pull to the right if you see an emergency vehicle coming up behind you, or here's what to check for in your carbon monoxide alarms. And so while we may not be able to quantify the exact benefit, I believe the benefits are vast, and that is evident in the number of views we've had even over the last 28 days, which is close to 1 million.
Okay, well, for how many in the RFA of the 1 million?
I would say the majority of those are within the RFA.
So,
yes.
Yeah. So my first reaction is, yeah, the social media stuff is probably pretty darn good, and it's probably a return on investment. The comment thing, not so much, but even for both of them, we need to see some kind of data, some metrics, knowing what the heck we're paying for. We're known as a lean, mean machine. We return on investment. We do the most with the least. And so just to go, think, we always got to be thinking about the money, what do we do? What does it cost? And what's the return on investment? Does it improve the service for the money? So anyway, thank you.
We got Commissioner Wonkelman, then Commissioner Chan, then Commissioner Fernhoff. Commissioner Wonkelman.
Yep, thank you. As I guess the question I'm well known for is I would appreciate you said success in social media and I appreciate that, but I'd like a little more definition. What is success in social media? How do we define that and how are we measuring it?
So for us, we're tracking how much our audience has been growing over the last few years, and we track how many views and how much reach that we have. And so we've been able to show that we are consistently growing our audience. When we get more engagement, we know that our posts are resonating with people, that people are getting something out of that. So that is how I would measure success.
Okay. So I heard growth, views, and reach in that. Now, one of the slides that you showed is that our reach in South County is very small, but our reach outside of South County, at least for the two posts that kind of went viral, was very large.
Exactly. Those are two very specific cases. And I showed those to let you all know that these sort of viral posts that I think caused a little bit of consternation during our last discussion. Those are one-offs that are not reaching our target audience. That's not the kind of content that we're trying to produce. We are trying to produce content that reaches our local community here, in South County Fire.
But with the social media the way it is, we have no controls. We have no capability of really doing that. We put it on the web. It can go anywhere, correct?
It can go anywhere, but we know that certain topics end up just generating a little bit more discussion.
Okay. Well, my biggest concern is because I've been researching and I looked into the caseloads that are actually increasing with 2 cases in 2024 reaching the Supreme Court about public forum and social media. I currently know in Miami for taking a comment down that was considered derogatory is currently going through Superior Court right now as they're saying that is causing or is impacting freedom of speech, which we've talked about. And so this is a really challenging conversation to have because, right now it seems like we're kind of figuring out what the legal reality is of it. And so by, taking comments down, even, the derogatory ones, how do we define derogatory? And is there legal guidance on what is defined as derogatory that gives us the capability of taking a comment down? Is questions that I have. The other thing is that limiting, because from the brief research that I did, I noticed that a lot of the negative comments are typically within the first 100 comments that are being put out that are considered derogatory, that are considered very concerning in the nature that somebody might interpret as extreme. And so I'm concerned about that because I don't know how much we'll be limiting, especially in these hot button topics. And so my biggest concern is the legal risk that we'd be bringing upon ourselves, 1, for removing comments, 2, for limiting comments on a public forum when we are reducing the capacity of somebody to express themselves in accordance with the First Amendment. And so that's something I think we need to really discuss about. I think that's where we need legal counsel to fully guide, especially on the interpretations. I read it, and that's not I read the cases, and I'll be honest, I don't have a legal background, so it was hard for me to fully interpret what the pro statement and the con statements were, or the opposing. And so I think that we need to really sit down and have that conversation because it seems like the ecosystem is rapidly adjusting to governments using social media as a public forum.
I will just share, we have Matt Paxton online, and the reason that this policy was drafted, it was done in tandem with legal counsel. Matt, could you just share a little bit about these policies?
I think that what we're touching on here is the difference between how a policy is drafted versus how it's applied. And there are certainly test cases out there in the legal sphere. All of them are, case by case basis for the most part. What I can say is that the policy that's here is on its face a valid and legal document. The enforcement of that policy is of course its own area that will require further discussion that can happen at a staff level. It certainly can happen at an attorney level, and I would expect that we would get calls if there were questionable posts out there like that. But we're used to dealing with providing that type of advice, and the world's a risky place, and so we're here to kind of help mitigate that risk for you.
Okay. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate the document, the policy is a legal document. I definitely understand that. My concern is the enforcement of it, because the last thing I want is to be using our constituents' funding going to court because, well, the policy is being interpreted differently. And they find that a First Amendment violation has occurred. And we're dealing with cases like that are happening in Miami right now and Michigan right now.
So we have Commissioner Chan, then Commissioner Furnoff, then Commissioner Lawrence. Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, first of all, I have to say, all my kids tell me on the social media. I don't really get into that much. But when I run the business, I only look for the negative. Because those praising us, those are convinced already. I don't need to convince them more. So I kind of different from you. I want negative for two reasons. Number one, maybe the person makes some points in there that I can improve for our service. Or secondly, because the person did not understand it. So you need to explain to them. To me, I see that as very more important to look at the negative part of it. So I'm also asking, how do we compare with other fire district? Are there any people know certain, somewhere in New York or Arizona or whatever, being because of really good policy there? Did you find out?
Yes, because, fire departments in Snohomish County are just kind of picking up social media. Most of them don't have a policy in place, but the cities do. In your packet, you have policies from the city of Marysville, the city of Everett, the city of Seattle, the city of Linwood. They're all very similar policies to what is drafted in front of you. This is becoming a much more common thing because social media is considered a limited public forum that can have some boundaries in place. As Matt pointed out, enforcement it is a delicate, slope, and we have to work with our attorneys. We already do that when we're trying to manage the comments currently, but it's just that we don't have any sort of policy to say, here's what's allowed and what's not. So then we're at even more risk, is my understanding, for deleting a comment or not. So what I'd like to do is just put some really common sense and common boundaries in place to give us sort of a framework to have these discussions.
I share Commissioner Lawrence the expense of it. So I don't want it anyway, like AI or something can analytical to group the two together. And so if somebody negative, somebody can point it out so somebody can take care of it rather than read every single comments and stuff.
I'm guessing that might be more dangerous than staff trying to manage the comments, but I would allow Matt to elaborate on that.
I mean, alert us anything.
Yeah, none of the comments will be removed because they're positive or negative on a particular topic. That would be not viewpoint neutral. But it is, could you use AI to flag potentially offensive or, that would otherwise violate our policies? I guess that's theoretically possible. I'm not sure if practical, if it's possible at this moment.
Yeah. Okay. But I think my main thing is that we have quarterly newspaper, newsletter, right? Only one quarter. I don't know how many read it or somebody. I think social media is important to educate, not educate. Okay, how many of the video for prevention, right? Telling people this certain thing. Are we using that too to the media?
We are.
Yeah.
Yes. We're talking about fire safety. We have a video that's going to be coming out soon on a rescue that we conducted at an apartment building in Mount Lake Terrace. And we have video of the actual rescue. And we're going to be using that to share a safety message and tell people, here's what you should do if you're stuck in your apartment and you have no way out.
So you get response from those people, a lot of comments.
Yes.
From reading that. I think that that's really important. I very encourage it, and but again, I don't want people just monitoring. That's not so. Anyway, so I definitely whatever really work on that, because as you said, nobody read newspaper anymore. Nobody. That's our only content with that. But I think something is critical is that I think we need to get a message out. See, because I think of it differently. When they said that they rescue for that person, I keep on thinking overtime.
There was no overtime involved.
No,
Those are our on-duty crews.
on duty group, but do they have to stay longer and all that stuff?
Nope.
Okay, but even that, they would take it, occupy some for one person while they cannot serve the general public, right? I mean, that's how I think about it, and is but I think this needs to be explained to the public too, right? That a lot of time we don't do things just to make money. We have to rescue everybody, right? Whatever people is, we answer them, like the lady talk about, to transport the thing. It is, I mean, but at the same time, we need to look at our budget and, whatever we have to explain to people. We're just not serving you when you make call with all other thing, preventions, all the stuff that costly.
Well, I think connecting, as you would say, connecting with our community is critical.
Right.
And social media is the modern medium to connect with our community. People aren't reading newspapers. They're probably not reading our quarterly newsletter as much as we would hope. They're probably, and this is the modern communication method. We talk so much about why doesn't anybody come to our meetings? Why don't they come to this? And we desperately want to connect with our community.
Right.
This is the modern way to connect with our community. I've learned a lot through this. This is a critical way to connect with our community, and it is, being connected to our community. That's our lifeblood.
Right.
And the old mediums are not working, and which are evident in, engagement and participation. And when you comment, when you like, and when you subscribe, that drives the engagement and gets more people to look at us. And I think it's paramount when we don't have one city. We have 5 cities. We have a county. I was down in Edmonds interacting with the community this weekend, and they thought the city of Edmonds had its own individual fire chief. We need to I see Christy as our expert in this, and we need to connect with our community. This is the modern way to connect with it. And what she's done with the policy is to create risk management. She's creating the guardrails that we're concerned about with legal. So she's trying to work with legal to have some risk management guardrails, but still work with the modern medium to connect with our community.
Yeah, whatever it is, I usually support. And I have to, are we in TikTok?
We're not currently on TikTok.
Well, I think that's a younger generation that we need to connect to. But anyway, so that is, I would like to continue to get a policy done and take whatever risks we need to take. That's important.
Commissioner Fernhoff, then Commissioner Lawrence. Commissioner Fernhoff.
So whether it's a success story or not, I will tell you a short value that social media brought to this board in particular that impacted it absolutely directly. And whether it's positive or negative, I'll leave that up to you to decide. But after taking the ACT class here and becoming an ACT instructor for South County Fire, I found myself on the Facebook distro list. And one day I'm sitting there typing away at my desk. And Don knows the story because I just told him this story. And all of a sudden this thing pops up and it says South County Fire, Commissioner wanted. And I said, oh my goodness, who would want to be a fire commissioner? Right? Thinking back to my experience, because I came from a department that two commissioners hated each other so badly. One took a coffee cup and smashed it over the other guy's head, and then we had to pay for a deputy to stand in between them. So I clicked the link and I said to myself, if the application is simple enough, then I'll apply. And it was name, address, and telephone number, and the rest is history. But if it weren't for social media, I would never have known that there's a fire commissioner position. You judge whether or not that was a success story or not.
Commissioner Lawrence.
Yeah, so now we know who to blame. Okay. So, do Facebook and the other outlets that you use, do they have their own internal blocks for foul language and that kind of stuff so that the obviously deranged, weak-minded people don't get through with that kind of crud?
Well, Facebook has very limited controls. They have a profanity filter. And then you can put in specific AI-driven criteria by which to block or hide posts, which is not really safe for us because we're a government agency. So we do not use that. They used to be better about managing comments, moderating comments, and you could report them to Facebook and say, oh, I think this is harassment or bullying or hate speech, and they would remove the comment. But what I have found is more recently that moderation has become a lot more lax, and they are either slow or completely reticent to moderate content for us.
And there's nothing there that blocks just totally brain dead idiot statements, which is like mostly what you find on social media.
I have not come
general.
across that kind of control.
Okay, so here's my concern. Another concern. The PDC, they created all this rules and regulations, which is to become a commissioner, just a lowly commissioner. It's like it's like a proctology exam as far as your finances, and they want to know all this stuff. Like what? They want to prevent corruption. The only thing the PDC is going to stop is the honest people. I mean, the real corrupt people are going to ignore all that and just going to do the corruption. Okay. Then there's we have the what's it called again? Records request. Okay, records request. That's created a whole business of records request trolls who try to trip up people. I mean, it's an industry. That's their job, trying to trip up the organizations and then take them to court. They've done that with patents too. There's patent trolls also. And so I'm seeing that that's where this is going to end up here, that if we do anything just a little bit, they got us and they're going to take us to court, just like the records request trolls. So that is something that we really need to think about before we go ahead with any kind of policy, and especially before policy that says that we can take down negative comments, because that's what they're going to be looking for. So maybe Max has something to say about that. Matt has something to say about that.
Yeah, there's going to be risk in taking down offense comments potentially, but the courts have been pretty descriptive of what crosses the line, and so those are the tough questions staff would contemplate once there's a parameter set in place in terms of the policy, assuming the policy does allow for comments.
I will add that the policy includes a clause that says any content removed based on these guidelines must be retained. And so staff would be required to create a record of that comment.
More work for us.
Commissioner Wackelman.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. I'm not against the policy. My concern is one, the removal. Who's making the decision? Where's that guidance? Who's the final authority that's going to do that with the legal counsel? Because there's always an interpretation. And so I'm concerned about that, and I'm also concerned about the capping. And I've looked through, and and maybe I missed it, I just did a quick brief. I haven't seen any of the other city policies with a cap.
Yes, you are correct. There are not many that are out there. The city of Kirkland has a cap, and I did not include that one in here. I was primarily going for Snohomish County when I set out on this journey, and then I added Seattle as well. The city of Kirkland has a cap, and they placed it at 40. Now, they give some verbiage behind their cap because it seems like they're using their social media sites for just a slightly different kind of communication. And what they say is that, staff will turn off the comments after they reach 40, and then we'll give you a place to go to find more information about this topic. That doesn't quite work for the posts that are creating the issues for us. They aren't issue type things, like a city would have. And so that's where I struggled with adding that. Matt and I actually had a more in-depth discussion about that this week, because that's one of the places where I just want to make sure we're thinking about the agency long-term. And I think that's just a really valid discussion to have, whether or not we feel like that's appropriate.
Okay. And I just, again, want to say I am all for policy. I think policy strengthens or reduces our risks. I think that it has a lot of good content in it. It's just those two areas within it that I think we need to have further discussion just to make sure that we're not setting ourselves up for more liability. And as Commissioner Lawrence said, litigation later down the road.
Matt, would you mind sharing a little bit of what we discussed this week when we talked about the 100 comment limits and the legality of that?
The 100, the limit on, I guess, disabling comments on a specific post once it reaches 100 is obviously content neutral. So the question in terms of a constitutional analysis for a limited public forum like Facebook would be whether or not there was a reasonable basis for South County Fire to take those steps. I think there's pretty clearly, we discussed several reasons why you might do that, including the some of the things that you heard today, which is when you get to that level, it's not necessarily your people who are commenting. There's kind of undue burden on monitoring and moderating those comments, and so there are content neutral reasons to limit at 100. And while I can't speak to like the public perception or anything like that, it certainly is a very defensible position. There will be no judgment call to that, past 100, which is puts you in a fairly protected position.
Commissioner Wittes.
I go along with Commissioner Wonkelman. I'm just concerned about the enforcement, if you want to call it that. I don't like the limit on it. The enforcement kind of bothers me because that's where you end up in court. So again, I agree policies are good, and I think a lot of it has to go to your input on helping us understand what's needed. Thank you.
So I want to chime in and say that I like the policy, and I appreciate the information about only breaching that 100 message or comment ceiling twice in the last year. So the reality is this is not happening very much. So it's not that big of an issue, but it will occasionally happen, and that's where we need the policy to address it. I think as Mr. Paxson indicates, the government can impose content neutral restrictions and a ceiling, whether it's 45 or 40 at Kirkland or 100 here or whatever number we choose, as long as we do that for both posts we like and posts that maybe we don't like so much. As long as it's for all posts, there's really no problem with that. In fact, I had suggested or I commented to Director Veely at another time about lowering having it lower. Do you really want it to be 100? But if you're only breaching the 100 a couple of times, maybe it's not that big a deal. I agree with the chief's comments about the nature of communication and it's changing. Director Veely talking about how old media is going away. And in particular, though, I wanted to highlight that there's a little local media. And so there's a real local media desert, and there's an opportunity for us to fill the gap. And we need to communicate with our constituents. We can choose not to. We can just do the whatever stories the Herald chooses to write about us throughout the year. We can leave it at that. We can leave it at our, 3 or 4 times a year, a mailer. But those are only going to reach the people that get the newspaper. I get the newspaper in hard copy, the Herald, every day, and it comes very early in the morning. Occasionally, I'm outside with my dog at that time, and I listen to the car come, and it comes from the paper delivery driver drives a car. Comes from a long distance away. I can hear it coming, rolls up into my cul-de-sac, throws the paper on the ground, and drives off. And you know what I notice? They don't deliver that paper to any other house around me. And now maybe everybody around me is getting it online, but people aren't getting it in hard copy. And so people just aren't getting the newspaper. And so we need to be where the people are. And I'm also concerned that the people that get our newsletter, those are people with homes, in my opinion. A lot of them have homes. What about people living, renters, people living in apartments or condos? We need to reach everybody. And these people that are getting it in homes, they're more established. I believe they're more established people, maybe older people, further along in their careers. What about younger people? And that's where I think social media can help us, because we don't need to just reach people living in their homes. We need to reach people that are young people just starting out. In my opinion, everybody, but particularly people that are 18 years of age and older, I want to reach them and talk to them because they are our constituents. They are our voters. And it's really easy for people not to see this service. That I believe it's really important. They care about it, but it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. And as long as you show up when I call 911, I'm good. But they're not focusing on us. We need to bring to their attention all the things we do, like the Marine response. That's really important for people to know we have that capability, or all the things that we're doing. It's kind of out of sight, out of mind, particularly with national politics dominating the regular media. There is a hunger, I believe, in our community for what's going on locally, but there's no supply for it. We can be there truthfully telling people the good work that we are doing day to day and telling those stories, but we have to find the way to do it. And the chief's right. Social media is the place to do that. We just need these safeguards to make sure that we are behaving appropriately as a government. We're not exposing ourselves to too much liability. But at the end of the day, if we've got to take some chances to communicate, I'm all about that. I think we need to do that. And I think we need to look at new social media as it develops to try and continue to reach a younger audience, because the young audience of today is the old audience of tomorrow. Younger people don't vote as much, but they're still paying attention. And maybe when they get older and they vote, they'll remember us. So I think there's a real generational issue for us in terms of communication, and social media fills that gap at the younger end, which I think is really important over time for South County Fire. One of the things, and I know I'm droning on, but one of the things that I've noticed when we had Leslie Hines as our PIO is that she would always be the media spokesperson, or most of the time, for South County Fire for traditional newspaper articles or in the TV. And we always had great quotes. We had photos. And I looked at the media articles about fires in other fire districts in Snohomish County. And they would usually have like a battalion chief or a deputy chief, and they didn't communicate very well. And the story was very small, and the quote was not much. And Leslie Hines' capability as a PIO to tell more of a story, to be that person that's quoted to these media outlets, was really important to getting us more exposure. And that's my observation over time, and part of why our PIO unit or our communications division is so important, because if we're not telling our story, nobody is. So that's why I think the money we spend is really valuable, because if the people don't know what we're doing, we are going to the ballot in multiple ways over multiple years into the future. If people don't know what we're doing, they aren't going to support us. We're doing great work. We just need to tell that story. This is a part of the process. That's why I think it's so important. So I guess my question for the board is, how do you want to proceed forward? Because I'm hearing different commissioners wanting different things. Do you want to bring it back for just more discussion, or are there specific, I feel like the legal component is something maybe we need some more drill down on. But are there other pieces that we need an analysis? Because I don't want to just have it come back to another agenda and we don't know why. I want to have some advances somehow. Commissioner Wankelman.
For me, I always like to know the strategical advantages of why we're doing what we're doing and how we define success. And in that, I appreciate growth, views, reach. But if our growth, views, and reach are all happening in the Philippines, is that technically what we are defining our success as? And so how do we start to actually, really understand how we're communicating and in terms that is reaching our constituents? I completely agree with everything you said. I mean, visibility is critical, and in any company, any business that I've ever consulted or done anything with is, understand where the eyes of your consumers are and then place your product there. And so it's critical to be able to communicate. And I just want to make sure that we're doing it effectively. And social media is the communication platform of today's culture. And so in marketing 101, it's what's your social media strategy? What are we doing to do that? What's the legal guides around that? So that if we can have better understanding in that, we can then create the policy that's going to help us support that definition of success, help us achieve that definition of success, while also not defining that definition of success. And I'm not saying that's what we're doing, but just off of what you showed in the slides, a good portion of the people that are viewing are overseas somewhere. And so I think that we need more clarity on what our strategy is, why we're spending the money where we are, what the effective, what that cost analysis is bringing back to the organization to ensure that we have a focused opportunity to promote and expand our communications in the most effective way to reach those that we're trying to reach.
Any other comments? Commissioner Chan and Commissioner Lawrence. Commissioner Chan.
Well, I'm glad we're a water district, because there will be nothing exciting about our operation, right? So when there's a fire set, bad draft and all that movies, right? So I think that's really good. And then I think that we're attracting some people, even creating potential, people who want to join the service and everything else, volunteer, that type of thing. Second thing is, I have to say that we're in the risk management business. Do you guys know that? We cannot be avoiding risk just for different things. Okay, so we have to have legal people here telling us what the thing is, and just go with it. We don't get to today become big because we are so scared of everything. So I totally agree that if you come back with some kind of additional strategy, you got to TikTok, I was kidding, but it is the young people, things in there. So if they hook them, I don't know how to use a word. If they like to see something here, eventually, they grow up, they want to be a firefighter, they want to be, EMS. And I love hiring the local people. They have the root in here.
Commissioner Lawrence.
Yes, and I agree 100% with what you said, Jim. But then again, I kind of agree with Commissioner Muckman, because is what I was saying earlier. Well, how do you measure the success or cost benefit analysis of it? Definitely the social media output for sure, because Commissioner Chan mentioned the young people. Well, yeah, a lot of these young people might become candidates to be firemen, and we need people applying, and it'd be great if they're local. So a lot of benefits. It's the commenting part. Is that even necessary? does it really help? That's what I think Commissioner Wonkaman and myself truly, and probably Commissioner Chan, want to know if it's worth it at all to take that risk of doing that, not the social media output. So anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Great. I think that's very helpful to guide the discussion for next time, because I have a feeling Director Veely and I will be chatting about it, and it'll help provide more content for our next meeting on this subject. So I would think that with that, I think we're concluded on this subject. Thank you, Director Veely.
I would like to just clarify one thing that's just come up a couple of times. So I just want to be clear, and perhaps I didn't make this clear enough in the presentation. Most of our posts are not most popular in the Philippines. I was trying to give an example of a post that went viral and showing how a viral post is not reaching our target audience. Those are the posts that are getting more than 100 comments. And that's what we're trying to put those guardrails in place against. That's not our target audience in the Philippines. And so that's why I felt like that was a safe boundary. So that's what I was trying to communicate. I apologize if that didn't come across. I'll share again that most of our audience, more than 70%, is in South Snohomish County. So we'll continue to try to tell that story.
We'll give the last word to Commissioner Furno.
Just to bring forward something from the intelligence community, which I'm a liaison to, we know that there are adversarial bots out there that when they pick up on certain themes, that they'll amplify them. And they do originate from out of country. So that may explain some of the skewed numbers that we have. So just take that in consideration.
Well, we're way overdue for our evening break. I know we had a good discussion, but we did go long. So why don't we take our 10-minute recess now from 9 to 9:10, and then we'll come back to our next subject, which will be the ILA with Fire District 15. So without objection, we'll be in a 10-minute recess. Okay, we are back on the record from our recess and ready to start in with the next item on the agenda, which is 11D. And that's the ILA with Snohomish County Fire District 15 for transfer of reserve medic units. Chief Curtis, good evening.
Good evening, Board Chair, Commissioners, liaisons and guests and staff. I'm before you tonight with a great opportunity to share with the neighboring community some of our surplus medic units. And specifically, this is asking for your consideration and board action for authorization to allow the fire chief to sign an interlocal agreement with the Snohomish County Fire District 15, which we know commonly as Tulalip Bay Fire Department. This ILA would allow us to transfer ownership of 2 of our surplus reserve medic units that have exceeded the capacity or the maintenance and suitable life for South County Fire. However, they would serve a great purpose for the Tulalip community in reserve status and shore up their reserve fleet. In exchange, Snohomish County Fire District 15 would allow us to use their live fire training prop for several years, along with scheduling that. And then they would also include a side-by-side utility or ATV and a 18-foot flatbed trailer. Now, staff have looked and legal have looked at the conditions of the interlocal agreement and have determined that this is an equitable transfer, which is in line with our policies and Washington state laws. So this is a good opportunity to share what's no longer usable for us in exchange for items that Tulalip Bay has determined don't fit their needs as well. So with that, I'll pause and answer any questions as you may have.
Any general questions from the board members? Commissioner Chan?
I think on the record, you did kind of do an analysis supporting that the changes is accurate. The amount is pretty
Yes,
equal.
yes, sir. It's comparable values.
Comparable. Okay, great.
Any other questions for Chief Curtis? Commissioner Wackelman?
It's not really a question, it's just a statement. I really like that we're doing this. Obviously, we could take this equipment to auction, but the fact that we are repurposing it and giving it to a district that is capable of using it, and it will help them accomplish their mission and help their communities. You know, I understand that we need to, you know, stay within the bounds legally, but I'm glad that we are doing that and that we're having these conversations and helping another organization out. So I'm very happy to hear that.
Any other questions from the board members? If not, I think we're ready for action. I'll move that the board authorize the fire chief to execute the interlocal agreement for exchange of surplus property with Snohomish County Fire District 15.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to authorize the chief to sign that ILA. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
That moves us forward in the agenda to item 11E, which is our 4th of July update with Chief Chalfant. Good evening.
Good evening, Chair and Board. Let me pull this up real quick. Okay, good evening. Tonight I have a short presentation for you where I want to be able to review our preparation and participation in the annual July 3rd and July 4th events with partner cities, as well as provide you a snapshot of incident totals for this holiday. Primary emphasis is going to be on the deliberate cross-divisional preparation that made a scalable response posture possible this year. I want to thank our division heads and teams within operations, EMS, prevention, logistics, community outreach, and members of the hazmat team for all the work that went into this year's planning process. We did prepare differently this year. Historically, community outreach has really owned the July 4th holiday events. They go and collaborate and coordinate with each individual division to kind of piece together, and then we create the incident action plan. This year, current world environment opened our eyes to a few things. Our hazmat teams incorporation and participation with Seattle Fire during World Cup events and the preceding events to the World Cup kind of opened our eyes as well. And we realized that when you have large events with limited ingress, egress, pyrotechnics in some cases, the crowds, it requires more than just that community outreach posture and a little more management readiness from us on that side. So for the first time, we did, in our history, we brought every division to the planning table simultaneously to develop this process. Through that process, two things were created: a special event standard operating guideline that will guide this process in the future. And then, as I shared with you after the July 4th holiday, the specific standard operating procedure plans or condensed IAPs that were specific to each of those events looked something like this in your email on July 6th. So that led us into the actual events themselves. So on July 3rd at Mount Lake Terrace event, we had a reported attendance of 10,000 persons. We had 19 South County Fire personnel assigned for the management of that incident, and we ended up with 2 EMS incidents during that time frame at that event. Distribution of those personnel, as you can see on the board there: incident commander, medical group supervisor, we had a drone pilot, all the way down through to our community outreach CERT lead that was on scene for this, and our volunteers from Air 15 and CERT support that took place in this. We did have 2 medical incidents at that, didn't require any additional resources than those that were already assigned to the event. On the next day in the Edmonds 4th of July parade, we had a reported attendance of 18,000 persons, and again was handled with a very similar, almost identical command structure for this incident with 19 personnel. The only variance was swapping out a deputy chief for an MSO in the medical group supervision area. And then we actually had the bike team patrolling through that crowd, as well as members of our hazmat team monitoring that crowd. And again, here we had 2 EMS incidents that were managed completely within the personnel assigned to that event. As we look through This event, you're right. We brought in emergency management, their communications van allowed us a place to set up unified command with police departments within those jurisdictions as well, constant monitoring of the event, and again, able to pull this off very successfully with no escalation or need to call in other units from outside of the event. With that, it leads us to the final on the snapshot, which it really is just that this year. We had a total of 0 firework injuries, 0 structure fires. We did have 14 smaller fires combined between brush and dumpster fires. And then there was, according to the reports, about 18 incidents that had some type of fire, but we couldn't specifically type it to fireworks for this holiday. So fairly uneventful, which is a very good thing. All the work on legislation, fireworks, and things of that nature has paid off. And you see that over the last 2 years, we've significantly dropped 23 to 17, now down to 14 incidents. So we are moving in the right direction on that. And again, the value isn't the fact that we managed those 4 EMS incidents. I think we would have done that regardless. To me, the value is what the team put together within this document that provides good guidance and advanced directive and notification on how each person attending that event and working that event should react should any of these issues pop up. So that is the end of the short presentation. Happy to take.
Commissioner Lawrence.
Yes, Chief Schwant, what about the coordination with law enforcement? Did any of that go on? Because
Absolutely, yeah. During that planning process, once we had the internal sections of it set together, that team went and met with Mount Lake Terrace and Edmonds PD individually, established plans for unified command, set up everything so we were all on the same page.
Commissioner Chan, then Commissioner Fernhoff, then Commissioner Wackelman. Commissioner Chan.
I think it'd be great if we can send this video to the cities in the parade. And a lot of people, even the elected official, they didn't understand the work behind it, right? It's amazing. And then, first of all, you guys did not get my permission to take my picture.
That's why we took that side, sir. So you can
But
deny it was you.
I really think, Chief Curtis in there and escort me in there and look at the operation. It's just amazing that a lot, like you said, first time we have to do the planning, everything else in there.
It's the first time we've coordinated to that extent, for sure.
They're extended, but I think that each city, they understand that without a regional fire authority, there's no one city can do that. And we don't emphasize on that, why they joined some kind of fire. And also that, a lot of expenses are being done in here, even the water rescue, right? Not if there's only one fire department in Edmond, they cannot do all that stuff. So it's a joint, we have to emphasize that.
For sure.
That is the pulling together that we can do it. So thank you very much.
It's a great point to highlight, Commissioner Chan. You're right. Alone, each city could not do this individually, and that is the strength of a regional fire authority. That is a great point.
No, Mike Terrace cannot pull out a parade, right? I mean, that's critical.
And I think this is a maturation where we've been talking about for the last year that we are a maturing metro fire department, and with it come different responsibilities when you have crowds of 10 and 18,000. And we've had smaller planning. We've had some significant saves. We've had cardiac arrest saves. We've had serious trauma saves. Real events happen during these, and we've had real success. And preparation sets us up for success.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I like the no injury on the whole. That's the first time ever, right?
That's a credit to you guys.
That's incredible. Yeah.
This has been a passion of this board for a decade or more, and we are finally getting there.
Now I don't have to go up to the county council to show all the picture now. Great, thank you.
Commissioner Freeman.
Yes, Chief Chalfant, I just want to point out that it was one of the most professional, complete, and aesthetically pleasing briefings that I have received here. And if anybody could, or if folks would just kind of take a cue from that, I think that should be replicated in the future. Very detailed. I had no questions, and I'm really glad to see the collaboration with EMD recognized a few faces there, and I really look forward to that standard going forward.
Well, and I will pass that along to Chief Waggle. I'd asked for a handful of bullet points, and that's what he said on my email. So
Well done.
it went straight forward basically to you guys with a few additions. So I will pass that along to Chief Waggle.
Commissioner Walkerman.
I'll second that just to start off with. First and foremost, again, great job. I got to see the tactical command. I got to see the coordination. I was able to witness the complex nature in which South County Fire, the cities, law enforcement were working together to ensure that everything was executed at a top level standard. And I'm just very grateful for the thought and the strategic effort that was put in and the execution of the strategy. And so that was amazing. My question comes in, is the 4th of July still our busiest day?
Pardon?
Is the 4th of July still our busiest day?
Actually, this year, I've done some brief looks at the total incidents. I'm waiting on some final data from Jen, our data analyst. But what I saw was we were slightly lower this year than in the previous 2 years by about 10 to 12 calls.
Okay.
So it was slightly smaller, but yes, July 4th is generally our busiest 24-hour period of the year.
Yep. That's been stated multiple times. I was just curious with the prevention, with the communication, with the effort on everybody's part, if it still was trending that way. But I'm glad to see that it looks with initial analysis that we're reducing calls. And I'm glad that we have a safe ecosystem. So again, thank you for everything that you've done. Thank you for everything that your team has done. Just excellent job.
I will pass that along, and this will be the standard for special events in the future. We will have this process in place.
Commissioner Chan, go ahead.
Yeah, do you mind send those slides to me? I'm gonna send it to, I have a lot of people work with me for 10 years of firework, and I let them know that there's no, oh my God, they were,
Yes.
They would jump up.
I provided Melissa an updated copy
Your
today.
copy? Yeah, send one
with that
today.
extra information in it. So
Yeah,
she should
that
have
would
a
be
copy
good.
for you.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, that was 11E. That takes us on to 11F, Commissioner Redistricting. We didn't have any comments in public comment tonight about the redistricting, but we have had some comments by email around the maps, particularly related to the addition of map 5. But there's been some media information, and Commissioner Wankelman and Commissioner Fernhoff were involved, and Board Liaison Morris were involved with the City of Edmonds meeting last week. And as Edmonds City Council tries to sort out what it may be its preferences regarding the maps. So I wanted to see, it's just on for discussion tonight, if there were any comments from the board members about the maps at this point, or I'll suggest a path forward, or Commissioner Lawrence, go ahead.
Yeah, whatever it is that you propose, the map that would include Commissioner Fernhoff in the Edmonds district, sure like to keep going on that one.
Well, that's map number 5.
Okay.
That's certainly in the mix.
All right.
And so my suggestion is that we set the matter over to the next meeting and continue to talk and think about the maps, and continue to deliberate and think about the path forward. But it would not be for action at the next meeting, and we'll continue to work on the matter.
Comment?
Commissioner Fernhoff, yes, then Commissioner Wittes.
Yeah, just kind of following up with what we did talk with the mayor and city council of Edmonds. They had called an expeditious meeting because they thought that the next day or very quickly we were going to take a vote on redistricting, and that's why the short notice, the fast meeting, if you will. Once they understood that we were actually delaying this and still gathering more public comment, they seem to be very comfortable with that notion, and this is a welcome extension to allow for everybody to have their voice. So I'm glad to hear that we're not taking action on this right away, and I would imagine that Edmonds would be as pleased as well. So thank you.
Commissioner Wittes.
Is there thoughts about going back down to Edmonds for another public meeting if we have more maps?
I am not thinking of that, but we probably have another public hearing here.
Okay.
Um, but we'll see. I guess it kind of depends on where the issue takes us.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions, comments, thoughts? If not, it'll be on the agenda for our next meeting. All right, that moves us forward to item number 12, which is committee updates, and we start with capital facilities. Commissioner Walkman.
We have a meeting coming up next week. At this time, no other information.
Great, thank you. Finance and Human Resources, Commissioner.
Yeah, it'll
Chan.
be on Thursday, 1 o'clock. And I think Commissioner, you're not able to come. Okay, right. We'll do that.
Intergovernmental, Commissioner Wittes.
First off, we have an opening on our committee, and Commissioner Walkeman requested to be on it. So if the board has no objection, he will be joining us for the meetings in the future. Additionally, we got a letter from the mayor of Everett looking at annexation coming up. So technically that does start the 45-day clock. We brought that up last week at a meeting. We met as a group, and we also had Aaron Hayes from CSD Law, I'll get that all out. And he brought up some information. We asked him some more questions. So that should be on the agenda for our next meeting for discussion.
Can I make comments on? So he's replacing Commissioner Rowland, right?
Right.
Well, that's a bad choice. Thank you for joining us, the Intergovernmental Committee. That's great.
Okay, Snow 911 is next. Commissioner Fernhoff.
Yeah, we did meet the, I always forget the name of it, the Emergency Communications Board, which is a subcommittee met. Talked mostly about how the team had designed their own set of software. They've been relying on a vendor that's fairly intermittent in terms of quality of support. So they took a hand at this new sort of AI vibe coding and created their own suite. We also talked about in the main 911 meeting about succession, because Kirk Mills is starting to put more emphasis on his departure through retirement, and then Terry Peterson would be the natural successor to that line. So, and there was some business, but those are the two highlights.
I should actually go back to intergovernmental, just so we're clear for the record that the Commissioner Wittes, the seat that Commissioner Wankelman would fill would be Commissioner Rowland's seat.
Correct.
Is that right? Okay. So with Commissioner Rowland resigning from the board in early August, without objection, Commissioner Wankelman will be appointed, will be assigned to that committee.
Thank you.
Without objection. Just so we got the record clear there. Good. All right. That is everything for committee updates. That takes us to item 13, which is commissioner comments. Are there any commissioner comments? Commissioner Chan.
Well, I thank you for the crew doing the presentations in the Linwood. It was amazing. It was so refreshing that they were so courteous, and they were really, they had asked really good questions. But at the same time, like, we work as a team. How do we message it out to the constituents? Why we need to do that. I just want to emphasizing that I got to be careful how I say it, but our capital facility plan had been worked for 10 years, right? At that time, you would pretty independently thinking about what is a proper way to put a station, how many are there, and all that. But we do have some input from at that time, the council or whatever people. So I just want to make sure that we're not being pressured for someone else to do something. To me, I think someone mentioned that you're at large. When I first started, it was 501 at large. So we think of the whole system at large. I don't just represent Lake Stickney, right? At one time, I think I want to emphasize on the record, at that time, there's 2 commissioners in Lake Stickney, but we don't get any station at all, right? Because that's a gap. We accept that because there's not enough population in there. or whatever reason. So we don't need to do that. So I think everybody understanding that right now, we, the commissioner, really need to take input from citizens, but still, if we can changing anything from our first from our facility plan, it would be, we need a really good thinking about it and not being influenced. We have to look at it as a system that we invest, not individual cities or individual things in there. Just the comments I want to make.
Any other commissioner comments? If not, our next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, August 5th, not Tuesday, August 4th, to accommodate National Night Out. 7 o'clock right back here at South County Fire Headquarters. We have no other business before the board, so without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Well done.